Hi and welcome to this video. I'm Salsabila, and in this video we're going to be talking about the movie Don't Worry Darling. Before I even start this video, I just want to say that this video will contain spoilers, so if you don't want the movie to be spoiled, don't watch the video. This video is going to be separated into two parts. Part 1 is me right now giving my first impressions, first thoughts on the movie after watching it for the first time, and part 2 is going to be me watching it after the second time with my analysis and a very in-depth thought on the concepts and the theme of the movie. So if you're here for like a more analytical view of the movie, I would suggest you skip to part 2. So let's get started. So today I finally watched Don't Worry Darling, and I'm not gonna even lie, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna even sit here and pretend like I didn't, and I'm not gonna let people and a bunch of men tell me that the movie is bad, because it wasn't. And you know what? I was very into the movie. I was very into the storyline. I don't know why it was catching all that heat. But I did walk into theaters, not watching the trailers, just knowing every detail of the drama that went down regarding the cast and what happened, da-da-da-da-da. But I had no idea what the movie was actually about. I just saw some scenes here and there, which made me think that it would be more of drama-based, like psycho thriller. Definitely didn't expect what what eventually we learned in the movie. I was shook. I liked it. It was really enjoyable. My friend, and this summarizes the movie really well, my friend said that someone described the movie as Get Out for white women, and I couldn't agree more. The movie was definitely giving a lot of Jordan Peele vibes, because a lot of the concepts were done by Jordan Peele, and Jordan Peele just does it so well. His movies are just so good. So it did give a little bit Jordan Peele vibes. Like, if you're a Jordan Peele fan, you're probably like, okay, yeah, the movie doesn't deserve the heat that it was receiving. Because let me tell you, look, I'm not like, personally the biggest fan of Florence Pugh in terms of like her as a person, but her as an actress, I can defend that, all day, like, because she delivered. She acted like rent was due tomorrow. She was giving her absolute best, which I'm like, now this is called an actress, because she was beefing with a director, yet she really outsold everybody in that movie. I mean, she is the lead, but no, seriously, like, her performance was insane. Harry, on the other hand, it was okay. We walked into the, like, my friends and I, we were like, already watched the scene of like Harry yelling, and we're like, yeah, we're definitely gonna be giggling through. I'm a directioner, which by default means that, I do listen to Harry Styles. Wouldn't say like I'm the biggest fan or a devoted fan, but I enjoy his music. Now, him as an actor, like, there's definitely a lot of work to be done, but I'm also not gonna sit here and pretend like it was like horrible, because it wasn't. It was just acting. Now, I do understand where a lot of people are like, oh, like, based off of his performance, does he really deserve all the pay that he's been getting? But on the other hand, he's not getting paid because he is a good actor. He's getting paid because his name is huge. Because of him, a lot of people did, just go watch the movie just for him. So you're basically paying for marketing. And also, like, I do not know if the whole drama was a PR stunt, but it worked, because I was very much invested in all that was going on. So yeah, like, Harry Styles and the drama did make me very invested in this movie, which was like, okay, we gotta watch this for sure. At first we were like, okay, don't know if we're gonna go to the theaters for it, but after all that went down and all of that, we're like, nah, we gotta go to the theaters for this. Yeah, Florence Pugh has always delivered, beautiful acting. There was a specific scene that I just cannot get out of my head, but I'm not gonna lie, I think it could have been directed better. So the scene that I'm talking about is where Harry's character Jack and Florence's character Alice, they're in the car, and this is when, like, Jack is pretending like he's leaving, and, like, Alice is like, okay, let's leave, I don't like this place. And she's thinking that they're leaving, but then, like, she's betrayed because Jack, brought all these men, and she's like being taken away, and she's like, she's like hysteric, and she's like, I promise to be better, I promise I can do better. And oh my god, the performance, insane. It was so good. Like, I was like shook. But Harry Styles yelling in front of her, did ruin the scene a little bit. For my friend, it completely ruined the scene. I just think the scene would have been better if he was saying like, I'm sorry, and he was murmuring it while like hysterically crying, because he was crying, but he was also yelling at the same time, which is like, dude, like you're completely taking away a lot of the attention from the scene. Like this should be about her and like her betrayal, like all of that, and we're supposed to like feel that, but we can't because there's this man yelling. Yeah, I just think that could have been directed better. But overall, the movie was good. I just don't understand the heat it was catching. I don't understand the low ratings. I don't understand the critics. And I do have a theory for it, and a lot of y'all are not gonna like it. And I don't care, but I'm just gonna say it. I do think a lot of the ratings and the critics are very, influenced by misogyny. Before I even get into, I just wanna say, I am not like the white feminist, the girl boss feminist who's, on my agenda. Like, defending white women is not my top priority in my agenda at all. But I'ma just say it. Every time, the director is a female and, behind the scenes it's like, mostly female, and she's leading the production, and also the lead character is a female, for some reason, the critics just have a lot to say. They just have a lot of negative shit to say. But if it was a movie where a man was behind it and they give you bare minimum where you're just like, I don't even, you know what I mean? It would have still been like dealt with a lot more grace than it is when it's a female. And the reason I'm saying this is because this observation is like not the first time that I've seen it. We have seen it for The Eternals. When The Eternals came out, it's a Marvel movie, and it was directed by a woman of color, and the female lead was also a woman, and the critics was shredding it apart, rating it so low, and I'm just like, it literally had the same Marvel formula that the Avengers used, but somehow that got like high ass ratings. But somehow when it's a woman and it's a female lead, y'all just have so much to say about originality, the acting, and how it could have been done better. It's just like, dude, it's a Marvel movie. What originality are we talking about? It's gonna be the same formula regardless. So why are we eating up all of these superhero movies with, male leads, with male directors, but somehow the bar is like up here for women? I don't even, like, my hand is probably out of the frame, but the bar is up here for women, but for men, like, y'all settle for bare minimum. That has to be it, because I don't understand. Like, this movie is not bad. It doesn't deserve the 39% on Rotten Tomatoes at all. I think it's just like, it gives a completely bad, like, impression of the movie, which sucks because the movie is actually enjoyable. If you're gonna criticize the movie like, oh, it's not original, da da da. Yes, like I said, Jordan Peele has done a lot of the concept. How original can you be? I actually think the message, the concept that they were trying to get at was nice. I actually really enjoyed the message and what they were trying to get at. And honestly, I must say it, because the movie criticized men and the way that they protect their masculinity and the extent they go to in order to protect their masculinity, and how they use how like women in part of the process become like literally like abused just so they can protect their masculinity. And I think it's a very good movie for right now in our climate, where we are seeing like a surge of alpha male and the incel, like what cult, I don't even know what to call it. It's rampant right now, and I think this movie does a great job of criticizing that kind of like mindset and culture and those kinds of like men. It probably didn't sit well. I'm just saying, it just doesn't make sense for it to be getting such low ratings. Another person who I mentioned was catching a lot of heat was Harry Styles. You pay for marketing, we can't expect like Oscar worthy performance by him, and it wasn't Oscar worthy, but it wasn't horrible. People online were dragging it too much. They were saying a little too much without knowing anything at all about the movie, is what I got after watching the movie. Y'all were just saying anything and everything, and I just think before you have any thoughts on the movie, please go actually watch it. I just want people to actually see what the movie is about before they like start running their mouth. I was not expecting the whole simulation twist. I was like, what the fuck? Everything just clicked, and it was like a whole 360 for me. I was like, wait, this movie just got so much better for me after knowing, oh, this is a fucking simulation, and this is what's going on. It was great. But yeah, this is like right now what I think my first impressions. In part 2, I am going to be talking about the movie in more details and analyze it. So if you do want a more like in-depth thought on the movie, stick around for part 2. Hi, welcome to part 2 where I will be basically talking about the movie through a more analytical lens. This should go without saying, but once again, spoiler alert. I also want to preface this video by saying that this is not going to be like a summary of the movie. I'm not going to be providing any summaries, so if you are looking for like a strict and precise summary of the movie, this video is not for you. This movie is more so me talking about the messages, analyze the movie through my point of view. So it should also go without saying that this video is an opinionated piece. I'm not going to be objectively talking about the movie. So first I want to talk about Olivia Wilde as the director. Like I mentioned, this is not going to be an objective video. So for me to provide a full in-depth analysis on the movie, I also think it's very important to understand the reception and also look at the factors of why the movie was received in such a manner and whatnot. I definitely think Olivia Wilde is a big part of the reason why the movie was received the way it was, and I definitely think it's unfortunate that a lot of her directing choices and style and her just this craft of hers was overlooked because of all the drama and just what she did as a person. Don't Worry Darling is her second time directing a movie. Her first time, if I'm not mistaken, was Booksmart, which I also watched. I did not know it was directed by her, but I actually really enjoyed that movie, and I also enjoyed Don't Worry Darling. She is not a bad director, and that is why I'm talking about her. Because listen, like I mentioned before, I am the last person to be defending a white woman. I often don't find myself in solidarity with white women considering all my identities. However, I'm also not going to be quiet when I think that something is being treated unfairly, and I definitely think this movie was treated unfairly because of who directed it. And I'm not saying that gender has something to do with it, but I am saying that gender has something to do with it. Like I also previously mentioned, I do not care what the critics think. The critics do not speak for me because they're mostly just middle-aged or old white men, and they do not speak for me or for my demographic or for my identities whatsoever. And that is the reason why I do not really care what the critics often have to say about the movies, whether or not something is critically acclaimed. Now, obviously, there's still some validation, I guess, to, critically acclaimed things. However, I also think it's important for us to consider who is criticizing these things. Anyways, that's just, to make you understand why I'm talking about this the way I am. I think Olivia did not get enough credit for this movie like she should have. Her directing choices in this movie was actually well done. Again, unfortunately, her work was overshadowed by all the drama that went down. I actually watched a video that she did with Vanity Fair where she was breaking down the dinner scene in the movie. That video basically helped me understand her as a director, and I'm glad I watched that video because the way she was breaking down the scene, the way she was talking about everything, she was very particular about things. And it's not like, oh, groundbreaking. Like, of course, if you're a director, if you're a good director, you need to be particular about things. You need to be intentional. And she was exactly that. She was very intentional with the choices she made. She also paid good attention to how things were around her, and she wasn't focused on what she wanted, but also valued the momentum, the energy that was going on. Additionally, she also talked about the movie and emphasized the collaboration. And I'm highlighting that because oftentimes directors are very stingy with credits, and they oftentimes get the most of the credits, which I understand. However, seeing her shout out all these people who she worked closely with to make this movie possible, and giving us an insight on how those people also made particular choices. She directed everything with intent, and it did translate. I really do have a bone to pick with the way the movie has been received. I really don't have anything to complain about regarding her directing style or choices, except for that one scene that I previously mentioned. I think it could have been directed better in terms of what Harry decided to do. I also don't know if it was an actor's choice, but other than that one scene, the movie was great to watch. It was very entertaining. It wasn't bad. Yeah, I think the critics and like the reception really made my expectations super low. But I just think it's not fair for us to not give her credit or dismiss her, you know, because of all the drama. And I do understand, like, you know, her as a person, what she did was very unprofessional. However, a craft is a craft, and I give credit where credit is due. And that's just my 2 cents about Olivia Wilde and her craft, that is Don't Worry Darling. I want to talk about some of the choices that I thought were very clever in the movie. The first thing that I think was super clever was the choice to make it a period piece. Now, of course, if you watch the movie, it's not a period piece. However, I feel like for the first time when you're watching, you are like, okay, everything is screaming the 50s, you know, the gender roles, the setting, the cars, the outfits, whatnot, right? So you're like, okay, is this a period piece? Is this taking place in the 50s? Or what is going on? I myself spent, up until we get to know that it's a simulation, I was questioning, is this taking place in the 50s? Or is this just a gated community that is taking place in the present day? However, they are functioning like it's the 50s. Like Handmaid's Tale, right? But not just as extreme. But essentially, like, is this a dystopia? But I thought everything was, obviously, as viewers, you're thinking like everything is real, everything is happening. But we get to learn that it is not real. And I think it's very clever to have the audience question, like, I want to believe that this is in the 50s. The movie is trying to convince me that it's the 50s, but something feels off. That's what was going through my head. And I was not the only one, because my friends also said the same thing. They said they were also confused about, you know, whether or not it was the 50s, because some things were very on point, but also some things were like, this is kind of off. I'm not really sure if this is really the 50s. And to plant that kind of doubt of like, something seems off through the settings and the clothing, basically like through the period that it's like taking place in, is very clever. Up until I got to know that it's a simulation, I was like debating. I almost, you know, I felt like alongside with Alice, I was also trying to figure things out and collect as much information as I could to really understand what's really going on. That's what psycho thrillers are supposed to do. That is exactly how you keep an audience engaged. And it could only be me. I didn't watch the trailers before I went in there. Could be that. However, my friend who did watch the trailers, she says, you know, she felt the same way. Later, it makes sense why everything felt off. And you were not sure what's really going on. If you're watching a psycho thriller, you know, the audience is assuming that something is off, and we're gonna need to find something, what's going on, right? And to use that and be confident in that choice and to like deliver it in this manner and incorporate it into like to create this like feeling of doubt about the period that is taking place, I think that's very clever. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. But if you do, or if you felt like the same way that my friends and I did, please let me know. Could be making this shit up. Could be looking too much into it, but I doubt it. Moving on, another clever choice that I have noticed when I watched the movie for the second time was the use of certain words, basically word choices, and the way it had double meaning. So what do I mean by that? So when you watch it for the first time, it seems like it is a literal, straightforward question or phrase or word in relation to the situation at hand. However, when you watch it for the second time and you know what's actually going on, you pick up on these like double meaning like words and questions. Obviously, like, you should find stuff like this in good psycho thrillers, and that's exactly my point. It's a good movie. That's why it had a clever choice like this, where you're like, wait a minute, that's what you meant. Like, now I know what you really mean. I obviously cannot think of, you know, exact words or phrases because I do not have access to the movie to do that. However, I do suggest you, if you've watched it once, I suggest you, if you can, if you know you're able to, watch it a second time. It's really fun. You catch a lot more Easter eggs. You catch things that you didn't catch the first time, and everything just seems more crazier and sinister. Another choice that I want to highlight that I thought was super cool and clever of the movie was the musical score. And I want to talk about 3 specific musical scores. Everyone who watched the movie knows that there is a very distinguishable sound of a woman like humming and then like huffing and, you know, puffing and breathing heavily, and like there's like a musical score with all of those, and it's like obviously very eerie and very creepy, and it adds so much suspense and all of those feelings that you're supposed to feel. However, I think it's clever because I also think it creates a very particular experience for the audience. So the specific musical scores that I'm talking about is called Advanced Ballet Class, Whiskey by the Hearth, and Victory Chase. All of these include the iconic, you know, woman breathing heavily, humming, and like it feels like almost like a fly is like, you know, mumming, but it's actually like a woman panting and humming and mumming and all of those things. The particular feeling that I feel like it creates is it allows us to experience the fear and the paranoia and the suspense with Alice internally, because what we are seeing is very much external. However, this added like sense through music, through these sounds, allow us to internally feel and experience with Alice what Alice is feeling. And I think that is super clever because it adds a layer to you're already feeling like the feeling of suspense that the audience already has as the viewer, but also the added layer is you feeling it because you feel like you are in the shoes of Alice, or you're like with Alice experiencing it. And I think that was so clever and well done. I also want to give huge props to the camera director, person who was quite literally operating the camera and did the cinematography choices, because a lot of the times when the score would be playing, it would be like a very like close-up of Alice, and it would be either we are closing in on her or it's a close-up and we're closing out on her. All those things create a very intimate, a certain feeling, and mixed with the music, again, it creates that like very particular experience that you can only feel if you're like really understanding what this protagonist is feeling. That's why I'm saying it creates a particular experience, a viewing experience. I also want to give huge props to John Powell, who is the I don't know, the composer, director, producer of the musical score. I'm sorry, I do not know like musical terms, but I do like is this person who's on Spotify. If you go on Spotify, if you look for the Don't Worry Darling musical score, it's the person, and he's basically, I guess, the one who composed and produced everything. I thought it was very distinct, and I like that choice that they made. Okay, let's get into the message of the movie and the importance of the message. I think this is where it lost a lot of people. By a lot of people, I mean a lot of men, because I definitely do think the message in the issue that it was highlighting is very relevant, especially with the current like climate and culture with the whole alpha male, the whole incel culture. I would even go as far as to say a freaking cult for some of these like people actually serves as a perfect warning for such culture slash cult slash mindset. I don't even know what to call it. The message highlights the extent men will go in order to protect their toxic masculinity. The men in the movie are partaking in the simulation, holding these women against their will, essentially holding them hostage, all to protect their fragile ego because they have fragile masculinity. I actually read, or I've heard somewhere, that Olivia, or the writers based the character of Chris Pine, who is called Frank in the movie, is based off of the real life, I guess, alpha male slash motivational speaker, whatever you want. I don't even know what to call these males. They have no legitimacy in my eyes or in my mind, so I literally do not know what to call them. But Jordan Peterson is a person that Frank was based off of, or, you know, more so inspired by. I think Frank is an embodiment of so many different kinds of like these motivational grind set kind of like alpha male podcasters and whatnot, and I think it's portrayed in the movie very well when we do get to see like how Jack, you know, the character played by Harry Styles, gets into this whole thing because these people are like so good at manipulating these other men, you know, promising them that it will revive their masculinity. So let's explore the idea of toxic masculinity or fragile masculinity more so in regards to Jack and Alice. Alice played by Florence Pugh. In Jack's case, Alice is a very hardworking surgeon, and he had also recently lost his job, which resulted in Alice working longer shifts, or double shifts rather, and her becoming the main breadwinner. So not only is Alice very successful, she's earning good amount of money, you know, she's a freaking surgeon, she's the main breadwinner of the house currently, and all of those is threatening to fragile masculinity. For a lot of these men with fragile masculinity, they find the value and the worth of their masculinity within these, I guess, roles you could say. But because Jack has lost all of it, and now those traits and roles are being possessed by a woman, he doesn't like that. And that's why he loves the simulation, right? Because in this simulation, he gets to play the man of the house. He gets to go outside and work, and she is this like housewife, and she stays home, she cooks for him. He no longer feels emasculated because of her and who she is in the relationship, her having the heavier hand in maintaining their livelihood, right, in the relationship, and that makes him feel emasculated. That also results in her not being able to prioritize or cater to his needs. Rather is the other way around. He's staying home, he has to cater, or should be ideally available to cater to her needs, and however it's not like that. He does not like that she is not spending time to cater his needs, to meet his needs, to think about him, or to be available for him. The particular scene that highlights him refusing to adapt to this new change in dynamics is when Alice comes home after her 30-hour shift, and she asks him if he cooked anything or if he prepared any food, and he says, "I didn't know what you wanted. I texted you. You didn't text me back." My friend pointed out two things. You have been with this woman, I'm assuming, for a long time, right? They lived together, for God's sake. And I would even go on to say, like, even if you didn't live together, dude, like, you should know the environment that your partner works in. You should know that she doesn't have her phone if she's literally working like long ass shift in the operation room. And for him to use that excuse of, "Oh, well, you didn't reply to my text, so I didn't care enough to prepare us food." It's almost like he's punishing her for not tending to him, for not being available for him, even if that is virtually. And he's punishing her for that by not preparing food. Also, another thing is oftentimes, and I feel like, I mean, recently on social media, a lot of creators have pointed this out, is oftentimes women in a relationship pays keen attention to what everybody wants, needs, and likes. However, when that kind of responsibility is put on the man, they somehow have no idea. And this scene highlights that, because if my partner is working long hours, if I am a good partner, I would know what they like, and I'll be like, okay, you know what, they're not responding to my text, but I'm gonna make them something or get them something that they usually like, that I know for sure they'll enjoy, and I'll just, you know, prepare that for them, so when they come home, at least they'll have something to eat. However, Jack doesn't do that, because he's already upset that this whole change, this whole shift in their dynamics is already making him feel like he's not man enough. So he refuses to be available and to be a good freaking partner. And that is exactly why Jack and all these other men love the simulation, and that is exactly why the simulation is set to be taking place in the 50s. Because in the 50s, it's notorious for the man goes to work, the man comes home, the woman prepares the meals, very black and white, very strict gender roles, very binary. And that is exactly why the simulation is taking place in the 50s, because these men get to feel like they're the breadwinner, that they're the man of the house. They go to work, and then they come home to their wives, who prepare them full feasts, and their wives are available for them, all dressed up for their husbands to do whatever he wants to, because he had a long day of work outside. In reality, these men are miserable, losers, jobless, bitchless. They come back to their reality, and they're working their ass off somehow, trying to manage to pay this dude who essentially created this whole cult, just so they can live a fantasy where they just get to use a woman without her consent, feel like the man of the house. This is top tier loser, bitchless, jobless behavior, my guy. But it is so good, because that is literally how so many men think and feel like. Even if they do not have the capacity, the ability, the facility to be the man of the house, to be acting like the way they act online and in person, they'll still expect you to take that. My guy, what are you on? You're not built for that. And that is why it's all fantasy. I know these men who listen to these podcasts and dick rides these like alpha male podcasters and motivational speakers. They wish. That is why this whole message is a warning. It doesn't even feel like a warning. It feels like a reality. It feels like a reality check. It feels like someone surveyed these men and just like, you know what, let's turn it into a movie. That's basically how it felt like. It was just too real. I'm gonna refer to a specific review that I just saw. The person basically said, a lot of the female viewers are enjoying this movie. However, I thought it was very disappointing. This movie keeps you on the edge of your seat and, you know, you expect something to happen, but at the end, you're just disappointed. Disappointed? My guy, the movie, what it showed is scary. For you to think like, oh, it's so lame. I can't believe what they're showing. It's so lame. It's not even, it's so disappointing. You know what it exactly is? These male viewers who are complaining that, it was so disappointing. It was not even anything creative. It wasn't even anything like out of the ordinary, out of the box. Like, it was. You just lack empathy. For you to not feel like whatever the reality of the movie, the message of the movie is absolutely scary and chilling, is you failing to empathize with the protagonist and for the women. The reason a lot of people probably didn't enjoy the movie or didn't understand the weight of the message is because they simply do not empathize with the protagonist, which is Alice. To them, it's like, oh, you know, it's just a simulation. Oh my god, yeah, she's trying to, and it's like, no, y'all ate up Matrix. I didn't watch that movie, so I don't want to, you know, but it's like, oh, to shit on a movie because, oh, it's just a simulation. Oh, what's the big deal? That's literally it. Like, these people failing to empathize with people and understand the danger of these kind of like toxic masculinity mindset. For them, it's not chilling, it's not eerie because they don't view it as such, because they don't understand just how scary it is for a lot of like women, for a lot of femme presenting people. I think that's basically what it is. That's why I mentioned earlier in the video about the critics. The reason it didn't get good reception or any good reviews from the critics is because majority of these critics are male, middle-aged or old white males. They simply cannot grasp the intensity of the message of the content because they fail to empathize with women and just how much the story and the moral of the story is applicable to real life. Anyways, back to the message of the movie. The movie shows just how far men will go to protect their masculinity and how men work with each other, for each other, in order to just feel like they're man enough. A part of that process is using women as objects, viewing them as objects instead of seeing them and treating them like full functioning human being. And in the simulation, that's exactly what they were. These women are being held hostage. They are just an accessory in the simulation, just for these men to have access to them. Additionally, I also want to point out a concept that a lot of people, including, you know, my friends and I, also pointed out, that is scary. In the movie, you know, that they provided a detail, right, where there is an option to choose no to a question that says your chosen partner and you do not have any prior relationship. The option to choose no indicates that a lot of these women in the simulation probably are kidnapped and are being forced to stay with this man, and they have no idea who this man is. And I actually think Bill and Violet is exactly that. If you have noticed, I noticed it more when I was watching for the second time, is how nervous and like paranoid this dude Bill is. And Bill and Violet is like the new couple in town, right? And every time there's like a chance of like, oh no, like is the simulation glitching, or oh my gosh, is this gonna end, or oh my gosh, is she gonna know that, you know, what this really is? He freaks out, and it makes you think, why is he freaking out more than the others? A part of me thinks that Violet has been kidnapped by Bill, and Bill is just like a creep. And I'm saying that because if you pay close attention to Violet and the way she's introduced as this naive, soft, innocent girl. I'm not saying woman, I'm saying girl. The way she's very, you know, fragile, if you will. And I think it was intentional. When she's introduced, she is dressed in all pink, you know, baby pink. Her outfit is also much more, I guess, youthful or youth-like compared to the rest of them, even though they're all taking ballet classes. That obviously indicates that she's way younger. She's obviously like this, like she's supposed to be this super innocent girl who doesn't know anything, which makes me believe that she is like a genuine victim of being kidnapped. And you know, this dude Bill is just a creep. He probably is holding her hostage, like in a serious kidnapping situation. Like they actually are not couple in real life. And I think that's why also he freaks out every time. Bill freaks out every time there's like a possibility of like, oh my god, you know, if just like a slight, you know, problem or change, and he's like freaking out. Let me know what you think, you know, if you agree, or am I looking too into it, because some of the choices were very keen and intentional. Now that's all for, you know, my analysis of the message of the movie and whatnot, and my thoughts. But I want to talk about something that Miss Wilde have said, and I do have a slight criticism on it. So the criticism that I have for Miss Wilde is claiming that this is some kind of empowering and progressive feminist movie, because she justifies that claim by saying that this movie only shows female pleasure. Therefore, this is a very empowering movie. As a director, knowing the story, what compelled you to say that? Like, why would you say that? Nobody in their right mind would look at that and think, oh my god, that is so empowering. Alice, the character who's receiving this so-called female pleasure, is being held against her will. She's a hostage, near death on a bed. Therefore, all the pleasure she's receiving is not consented. How is that empowering? How is that feminist in any sort of way? Please think about what you say. Like, that is a non-consensual act, you know? And we have a word for that. And there's nothing feminist about it. Come on, like, I know you're trying to sell this movie and you want people to look it through a feminist lens, you know, to really understand and grasp the full weight of the movie. But you cannot go around claiming shit like this, because it is very harmful. What is happening to Alice throughout the entire simulation is all Jack's fantasy. She is just an object in Jack's fantasy. She's a victim, my guy. Like, and this is Jack's fantasy for a reason. I'm sure he wishes he could pleasure her like that in reality, but I doubt it. Majority of the men can't do that. Let's look at Service, you know, like, let's hear what the audience says. But yeah, like, watching it, especially watching it for the second time, everything that's supposed to be so like loving and adorable between like Jack and Alice felt so gross and sinister, because you know, like, this is what Jack wants. This is not what Alice wants. All I'm saying is, yes, this movie is a feminist piece, but not in the way that Miss Wilde is trying to or was trying to sell it. And you know what happened? That led to Florence, who played this, you know, amazing character and delivered amazingly, was only asked about these scenes between her and Harry. Dude, like, she could have talked about so many other issues that she helped highlight through her character, but now she's stuck with talking about how this man pleasured her character against her will. But that is just like a quick criticism that I had for Miss Wilde. Like I said, you know, credit should be given where credit is due. Should also be held accountable. Expect criticism if you do or say some dumb shit. In summary, the best way I can describe it is, yeah, it's basically Get Out for white women. It is enjoyable, and it didn't deserve the 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, nor all the heat that it received. It's a good, enjoyable movie with a solid story and a solid message and good delivery. That's it for this video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts or, you know, your own opinion and whatnot, please leave it in the comments below. Just be respectful in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.